Welcome to
the Reddit
Roundup.
I, riding on my bike, saw a man lying on his back in the middle of an adjacent sidewalk. While it's fairly common around here to find homeless people passed out in doorways and whatnot, and therefore relatively easy to ignore, this guy was different. Nicely dressed, clean, not obviously homeless, and really still. Nobody was stopping. It was in broad daylight. I got off my bike and checked on him. His eyes were rolled back in his head, then would randomly roll around. His pulse was weak and slow. He was breathing, but very slowly and shallowly. Once I stopped, people started getting interested, but when I asked someone to call 911, everyone took off. I called them myself, and they wanted me to do CPR. I only had one functioning arm, so I again asked for help. All the rubberneckers again disappeared. Fortunately, an ambulance arrived quickly. I still don't know what happened to him, but I hope he was okay. Knew someone at school who was raised by a single parent. Said parent develops cancer, and my friend, who had been obviously depending on her, became utterly depressed. Couldn't cook meals, finish schoolwork, do sport. Most of his time was dedicated to his parent. I cooked/bought meals for him, helped him catch up all his missed classes, organized stuff to get him outside, etc. He's doing better now, so is his mum, although we don't talk anymore. Still, felt worthwhile. I came home late on a delayed flight, and there was an old woman sobbing at the bus depot because no one was there to take her home. This was in the middle of a bad snowstorm at 1 a.m., so no one wanted to drive. I picked her up and drove out of my way to drop her off. Had to drive an extra half hour in the worst conditions ever, but it all worked out. A friend I went to high school with is an elementary school teacher at a school without a lot of money. She did one of those GoFundMe but for teachers things. I can't remember the site exactly or what the project was, something tech related. She posted it on Facebook and there was a decent amount of sharing and stuff, but outside of a few $25 to $50 donations there wasn't a lot of actual activity. A month or two goes by and I check up on it again. It's only like halfway to the goal with a few weeks to spare. I finished it out and paid for the rest of it. I wanna say it was $300 or something like that. Never told anyone I know about it, left it anonymous on the donation too. This is actually the first time I've mentioned it to anyone at all. Just felt good. I helped a waitress at a restaurant I frequent. After a few months of patronage I knew most of the staff and was on a first-name basis with them. I learned that she was working 6 days per week, 8 to 10 hours per day, and going to school full-time, 5 days per week, 6 hours per day, plus she traveled by bus between 2 and 3 hours per day. A quick bit of mental math. On a bad day she could spend 19 hours with her obligations, not counting bathing, eating, or homework. And after she paid for her tuition, she only had 10% of her paycheck left over. As I have no family nor children of my own, I decided to pay for her university. She has since quit her job and is focusing on her studies. She regularly sends me updates about her classes and I'm happy to report she's getting straight A's as a psychology major. I switched from one type of insulin to another. After switching, I had about 30 vials of Novolog left over that I didn't need. We had a guy come out and do electrical work on our house and saw that he wore an insulin pump. I asked him what kind of insulin he used. He said Novolog. I asked him if he wanted my leftover, non-expired, still sealed vials. He said sure. I imagine he was thinking that it was going to be only a few. I loaded them all up into a Walmart bag and gave them to him. I don't know if he had to pay out of pocket or anything for his, but even if he did, the total cost to him for it could have well exceeded $1,500 in just co-pays alone. He was nearly in tears when I told him to keep it all. This happened about 10 years ago. I had an early childhood education class in college that involved observing/interacting with preschoolers. The college has a daycare for locals and teachers. One day we all decided to take the kids to a nearby park. This park was pretty secure but there was a very busy road right next to it, and there were gaps in the fences. One of the kids' moms decided to come early to pick up her son. She parked on the other side of the street and was waiting to cross. The kid saw her and basically immediately started running and climbed through the fence and was going into the street. I noticed and ran as fast as I have ever in my life, leapt over the fence, it was only about 3 feet, and grabbed the boy literally a split second before a huge flatbed truck zoomed past going at least 65+mph. I looked up and saw the mom and tears were pouring from her eyes and she was screaming, because from her perspective all she could see would definitely give the impression her son was hit. So she runs over and I just hand her the boy and she's in total panic and terror. The instructor gets over and tells me thank you and says we are never coming to this park ever again. And she holds the mom as she's crying. I just stand there in shock. She took the kid home. We all walked the kids back to class. An old buddy of mine was having trouble with his graphic design homework and I was a year ahead of him in university. So he comes to me asking for help because he knows he isn't that good. I proceed to go to his room and sit there for a solid 6 hours helping him understand fundamentals, learn hotkeys, and answer any of his questions. The next day he says he is now passing and his teacher is proud of how much he has improved. He gives me a burrito and we call it even. Took the time to listen. There was this girl who was a grade below me. She didn't have a lot of friends. Seemed to come from a strict family. We went to a small school so it's hard not to at least know a face. On a school trip we got to talking. Her details are not important. I had been through some shit. Small school. Small community. My shit was known. I assume that's why she opened up to me. Ran into her several years later. She said I saved her life with that conversation. She'd been thinking about suicide. Now she was thriving in college. I haven't forgotten that lesson. I am a 9/11 survivor. I was in concourse when first plane hit. Long story very short, I was carried out by a police officer and put in an ambulance. As ambulance was pulling away, the first tower goes down. The cop's body was found 4 months later. His 2 kids went go to college on me. I did it anonymously. Not all us Wall Saint guys are pricks, just most of them. More info please. How did you do that? Great story also. I'm very happy you made it out. Well, my dad is a retired NYPD detective so it was rather easy to find out the info. I found out through my dad's connections the colleges they were accepted to and contacted each one of them and told them once his kids chose their school, to please contact me and all expenses would be paid by a foundation set up for children of fallen officers. Okay, I lied about that part. I was paying on my own, with my own money. Once I had that info, I contacted both schools and wired the money anonymously to pay the tuition in full for 4 years for each, all expenses paid, etc. Cost me about 250 grand. I went to both graduations as well. Remained totally anonymous there too. As I said in my original post, not all us Wall Saint guys are pricks, just most of them. My boyfriend never thought his birthdays were a special thing. For his birthday I contacted all of his friends, weeks in advance, and asked them to send a short video of them wishing him a happy birthday as some of them are abroad. I then made a compilation video of these as well as pictures of him growing up just to show him how special he is to everyone around him, especially me, and how much he has impacted my life and so many others in such a positive way. I showed him this after I took him on a limousine ride to the Shard in London and gifted him a star in our names at the top of the building. He's done so much for me, I wanted his day to be just as special as he makes every day for me. Once I found a girl curled into a ball in the subway stairs. She had been having coffee with her friend, and in the time she had reached the station she got a call that her friend had been hit by a car and died. She was in shock. I stayed with her for half an hour, simply being there so she wasn't alone, until she recovered enough to go on her way. We've never met again, of course. This is a huge city. This one sticks out. I was at a gas station roughly 11 p.m. on a weeknight. The young girl in front of me has the counter filled with junk food and soda. Basically the shit to keep you going on a long night. Anyways, her card was declined and she seemed very upset. Keep in mind, while upset she was never rude or anything. Just annoyed. I walked to my car with my stuff after I paid while she sorted out her card issue. I then noticed the only other car in the station is filled to the brim with clothes/belongings. It then clicks in my head, this girl is down on luck. I walk back in the store and bump into her at the door. I tell her if she wants I'll gladly buy all the things for her and anything else she needs. She gave me this odd look and agreed. I'm probably 24 years old at the time. After helping her carry the stuff to her car, she looked at me with the saddest face and asked, "Why did you do that?" I smiled at her and said, "You were in the store buying all the foods I would be buying in a similar situation, so I figured you were normal. Now if you were buying the bananas and old fruit I would have been more skeptical." We had a short laugh about it and we went our separate ways. Always wondered how things turned out for her. That's it for this time. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.